Another edition of Why Shit got banned. This video got postponed like several times because of real life shit that's been going on. So that's why I haven't been uploading, but I'm back at it, hitting you with probably 2 uploads on the same day. Depending on when the other one renders, but we're talking about Deoxys D and Deoxys S today. So I kind of lumped these two into one video simply because they really got banned for similar reasons and at times could play similar roles. So let's start with Deoxys D. So Deoxys D, the main reason it got banned is because it could get up 2 layers of hazards on you, almost guaranteed, like 95% of the time. There's no way to keep it from getting 2 layers of hazards every single time. But the only exception I think is maybe Life Orb Shadow Ball plus Life Orb Shadow Sneak from Aegislash with both stats maxed out would be able to kill Deoxys D. Actually, I ran the calc on that. Yeah, it does KO, but that's like extremely. That doesn't exist. Okay. Oh, sorry if you heard that. I like knocked over one of my coffee mugs. But yeah, a Life Orb max on offense is Aegislash does not exist. And okay, well, what about Bisharp? Bisharp can scare it, right? It gets superpower, and it only needs 40 attack EVs to OHKO Bisharp. And it gets access to taunt with 90 base speed. So the point is, and most of the time it ran Mental Herb anyway, so you're not going to taunt it. You're not going to out-taunt it with like a Deoxys S of your own, or an Azelf, or anything. That thing's getting up 2 hazard layers on you every time. So it made it to where early XY, I think the main reason that you can attribute to XY's orientation towards hyper offense, especially in the beginning years, we're talking 2013, early 2014, is the existence of Deoxys S and Deoxys D. So it's a very rare case where a Pokemon is banned not really on the basis of offensive qualities or even defensive qualities. Like Deoxys D was not really played like a wall. It's just a hazard lead, really, but it's just a support role. You cannot keep this Pokemon from doing its job every single time, and that's why it was so good to the point where it was broken. And especially with how the defog mechanics ended up working this generation, you could use something like Bisharp to block the defog and make sure that those hazards that you took the time to set up stay there. And I guess I should also mention that Magic Balance in OU is not really a thing, so you can kind of rule that out. Like if you're playing Magic Balance just to counter it, first of all, that's an example of over-centralization, and second, you're basically playing 5v6 because they most likely have a Bisharp on their team. You know what, let me pull up that RM team, show you what I'm talking about and what the meta looked like because of Deoxys D. So anyone who is at all familiar with Smogon knows this team, maybe not by heart, but at least this core right here. It's the Dio Sharp core. This actually made it into the team archive because it pretty much was just like the defining team structure for that meta because of Deoxys D. The way it worked basically was, oh yeah, and this is actually kind of an unorthodox set because this is like from very early XY. It's from, oh no, it's from 2014. But basically later on they start running more like superpower or definitely taunt though. T-Wave's an interesting option, and then either the red card or more often you would see the mental herb. So you just throw out Deoxys D, set up the hazards, and you have like 5 sweepers just ready to tear through the opponent's team because they can't really they can't handle the hazards turn 1 that easy. So it was just a really toxic thing for the metagame. And because of its bulk, it could just come in and out. If you're playing like stall, like what the fuck is gonna damage it on stall? If they manage to defog your hazards or rapid spin at some point, you just bring Deoxys D back in and set them back up. And you have taunt with 90 base speed to block anything you want from trying to keep you from setting up those hazards. So now let's get to the other one. The one that's a little bit more interesting is Deoxys S, because you could still lay up hazards with Deoxys S. You could run a very similar set to Deoxys D and just make it faster. A lot of the times Deoxys S was also used to lay up the screens, but that was a little bit less common. Most people use it as like an offensive spiker with either Life Orb or Focus Sash, and its plethora of coverage moves, which made it really dangerous, as well as the absurd speed stat that allowed it to outspeed even like base 100 Scarfers. I just checked and I was correct that you have enough speed. You don't even have to run max. You can. It's like 232 speed timid to outspeed Scarfed Garchomp. That's 102 base speed with a Choice Scarf. That's crazy. You know how valuable it is to offense, hyper offense, to have a Mon that just automatically checks stuff like Scarf Lando was still pretty popular at the time. Scarf Drill, not as popular, but a threat. Scarf Chomp, like, what the fuck else? There's a bunch of like sub base 100 Scarfers in that area as well. Like, I don't know, Scarf Kieran Black. Scarfers that would otherwise demolish hyper offense that just get instantly checked by this one Pokemon. And you would think that it wouldn't get banned like on the basis of power, really, because it only has base 90 special attack. Doesn't seem like much, right? But when you slap on a Life Orb and you give it options like I think the most common set, I used to run 4 attack because I really liked that. Ice Beam, Knockoff, Superpower, Psycho Boost, that covers so much of the relevant meta. Just between like the fighting and dark coverage by itself, as well as the ice coverage to, again, cover those scarfed ground types like Landorus and Garchomp that are so threatening to offensive teams. And then you just throw in Psycho Boost to nuke anything for neutral damage. It's just so much utility in one Pokemon. You could even replace a move, like Knockoff really only hit like Aegislash if they're weakened, and Latios. Put spikes in there, you send it in on something that forces a switch, set up the spikes, save it for the Scarfer. It was just that simple, and you got so much value out of it on offense that it was another influence on the metagame that made it very, very hyper offensive, and it overall just was not healthy. So once again, these are 2 Pokemon that are perfect examples of Pokemon that didn't really get banned for their offensive merits by themselves, but it was just what they could offer to the team, to the offensive team, the support role, that really made these 2 Pokemon awful for the metagame. With Deoxys D setting up hazards, guaranteed, 100% consistent, and Deoxys S setting up, doing the same thing, and then some, with revenging common Scarfers and just obliterating other offense. It was crazy, and they were crazy Pokemon that deserved to get banned, but differentiated themselves from the other Pokemon that I've covered so far on why shit got banned, because it was because of their support and what they offered to the team that made them much more, made them worth much more than just the one slot that they covered, and that's why they were banned. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and give it a like if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.